Hello and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating piece of content from an Airbnb management company in Kavala, Greece called Planbnb. They published a post with this great title. We're so proud of our reviews, we made a post about it. Now I know what you're thinking. A reviews page? That sounds like literally the most mundane, standard part of any website, right? But what we're going to deconstruct today is how this seemingly ordinary page is actually an absolute masterclass in behavioral psychology and business strategy. We're going to break down the anatomy of trust itself, how it's built, how it's documented, and how it's presented to calm the nerves of some very anxious clients. To really understand why a page like this needs to exist, we have to start with the ultimate question. According to the team at Planbnb, pretty much every single property owner who calls them eventually gets around to asking some version of this exact thing. You know, they don't usually ask it right out of the gate. First, they want to talk logistics, the pricing algorithms, the cleaning schedules, how the check-ins work. But once all those basic operational boxes are checked, the conversation inevitably shifts to a much deeper, very human concern. How do I know this actually works?
Okay, let's dive into this, because as they say in the post, handing someone the keys to your home, especially if you live abroad, is not a small decision. You really have to empathize with the owner here. They aren't just buying a pair of shoes online, they are literally handing over the keys to a highly valuable asset. Often, it's their actual home. And for a lot of Planbnb's clients, they live entirely outside of Greece. So the founders realized pretty quickly that in the face of that kind of deep anxiety, just telling people that their system works wasn't going to cut it. They needed a way to actually show them.
So, here is our roadmap for the explainer today to see exactly how they do that. 1. Handing over the keys. 2. The psychology of social proof. 3. 2 audiences, 2 questions. 4. Why Google isn't enough. And finally, number 5, 11 years of habits.
Section 1. Handing over the keys.
When you break down the very real anxieties of a property owner, especially one who lives in another country, it really boils down to these core fears. I mean, they are trusting absolute strangers with their keys. They have absolutely no way to physically pop over and just check on the property themselves to see how things are going. And frankly, nobody wants to put blind faith in a slick sales pitch when their actual house is on the line. A good pitch might get you a first meeting, sure, but it definitely doesn't secure a multi-year partnership. They need something much, much more concrete to actually feel secure.
Section 2. Psychology of social proof. This brings us to the behavioral science engine that drives the entire Airbnb ecosystem and at the same time solves the remote owner's deep-seated anxiety. It's a concept known as social proof. If you've never heard of it, it's actually incredibly intuitive. It's just the idea that when people are uncertain about a decision, they naturally look at what other people have done in that exact same situation, and they use it as a guide. Think about your own habits for a second. If you're walking down the street looking for dinner and you see 2 identical restaurants right next to each other, but one is packed with a line out the door and the other is completely empty, well, which one do you choose? You choose the crowded one, right? It just feels safer. The exact same logic applies when you're buying a product with 500 reviews versus one that only has 2.
So the crucial point here is this incredibly punchy realization. Guests trust guests, and owners trust owners. Peer validation is basically the only currency that truly matters in a dual-sided marketplace like this. Guests don't trust clever marketing copy, they trust what other guests have to say. And owners? They certainly don't trust a sales pitch, they trust what other property owners say. Planbnb recognized that the absolute only way to answer a nervous owner's questions was to use the very words of people who had already taken that leap of faith.
Section 3. 2 audiences, 2 questions.
Now here is where things get really fascinating. You have a single business operation that is being judged by 2 completely different groups of people. As they were pulling their reviews together, the founders noticed a really stark split. On one side, you've got the owners. They want to know if the home is being treated like the manager's own. They care about high-level communication, the logic behind pricing decisions, and just knowing their property is safe while they're hundreds of miles away. On the other side, guests literally couldn't care less about a pricing algorithm. They care about their immediate on-the-ground needs. Does the air conditioning actually work? Is the place spotless? And crucially, if they lock themselves out or if the plumbing backs up at 11 p.m., is an actual human being going to reply? Both groups are validating the exact same operation, but they are coming at it from completely opposite angles. And this brilliantly illustrates why Planbnb designed their website the way they did. They purposefully split their reviews page into 2 distinct sections. Section 1 strictly features what owners say about working with them, focusing on that long-distance relationship. Section 2 features what guests say about staying with them,
focusing on the on-site experience. They explicitly wanted to avoid creating just a generic, blended wall of 5-star badges. Why? Because a generic wall doesn't actually answer the specific, nagging question of the person reading it. An owner needs to read about remote communication, while a guest just needs to read about spotless sheets.
Section 4. Why Google isn't enough.
Now, if you are a web developer or maybe a marketer watching this explainer, you might be asking a fairly obvious user experience question right about now. If you already have verified Google business reviews out there, why even bother building a dedicated custom page on your own website? Well, let's walk through the real user journey for a second. Most people don't proactively go hunting for reviews on their own right out of the gate. Usually, they search for something like Airbnb management in Kavala, and they land directly on the Planbnb website. And here is the terrifying reality of the internet. They are going to make a judgment about whether to trust you in the very first few seconds of arriving. Trust literally has to be captured instantly.
As the source material bluntly puts it, if the proof isn't right there on the page they're already reading, most people won't go dig for it in a separate tab. It's so true. If you make them leave your site to find proof, you've just introduced user friction. They might get distracted by another search result, or worse, they might just leave with a bad, unguided impression based on whatever sparse information you initially showed them. By pulling real, independently verifiable Google reviews directly onto their own site, Planbnb removes that friction entirely.
Section 5. 11 years of habits. We're going to bring this explainer home by revealing the daily operational reality behind the curtain. Because honestly, a beautifully designed page means absolutely nothing if you don't actually have the real-world proof to put on it. This is not some overnight success story powered by clever marketing. Back in 2014, founders Ani and the author were really just trying to figure out how to manage their own rentals because they couldn't find anyone else doing it to their standards. Fast forward to 2026, and they are managing over 50 properties across the entire region, from Kavala to Nea Roklica, Nea Paramos, and Palio. The number I really want you to focus on here is 11. 11 years. It is a stark reminder that deep, unbreakable trust isn't generated by a slick website or a really persuasive meeting. It is generated by 11 years of relentless, boring, daily consistency. So what does that consistency actually look like? Well, it looks like a collection of completely invisible, unglamorous habits. It's the strict discipline of answering a message quickly every single time. It's fixing a problem before a guest ever has to ask you twice about it. It's the sheer physical labor of ensuring a property is spotless on every single turnover, not just the turnovers where you suspect the owner might pop by for a surprise inspection. These are the tiny, small actions that actually earn trust over time, which leads us perfectly to this incredible core thesis from the post. Reviews are just the visible record of 1,000 small things done consistently. I want you to think about how powerful that framing is for a second. A 5-star review isn't just some marketing tool you beg for at the end of a stay. It is literally a receipt of your operational consistency. When an owner writes they are organized, that is someone publicly documenting 11 years of reliable habits. When a guest writes, the host answered fast, that is the entire system working exactly as it was designed to. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a question to apply to your own life or your own business. In your own endeavors, whatever they may be, are your credentials and your reputation built entirely on just a really good pitch? Or are they the visible record of 1,000 small habits done right day after day after day? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thank you so much for joining me as we explored the anatomy of trust through the lens of a simple reviews page. I hope this sparked some curiosity for you.